Hello and welcome to today's session. Today we're going to be talking about styling your documents and styling your projects. How do you style it? How do you format it? And how do you reference everything in your project? So first I'm going to start with style. Make sure that your point of view and voice are consistent. You have to use personal pronouns when appropriate. For example, we conducted an experiment instead of the authors conducted an experiment. Also use the active rather than the passive voice, like we ask participants questions instead of the participants have been asked questions by the researchers. Active voice follows subject, verb, object mantra. Passive voice, you turn the object of the action into the subject of the sentence. The problem with that is that it's very wordy. It requires more words to convey the same information, and as well as confusion. It's very confusing because it conceals who or what did the action. You use the active voice when suitable and when it's necessary for correct syntax. You only use the passive voice when you're trying to conceal who did the action. Instead of saying Muhammad built the laser, you say a laser was built. The language, remember that the language of a scientific or a technical project is clear, concise, and plain. You have to be clear in what you're trying to say. Don't be wordy. This is not a creative writing class or a project. Try to be straightforward. Use fewer words to say what you're trying to say, and use very simple language. Try not to use metaphors and similes and flowery language. This is not acceptable in technical writing. How should you format your paper? I'm going to go over this part very quickly because you're following a particular format for your projects. You're going to have front matter and end matter, and we went over this in class last time. You have to have a cover page and table of contents. You have to have a letter of transmittal, executive summary, list of illustrations or graphs, etc., etc. So you are aware of how to format your paper and the order of this information and how it should appear. So I'm going to go over this part quickly. I just want to show you the differences between APA and IEEE. So for IEEE, you don't need a cover page and you write in 2 columns. In APA, you have to have a title page and you have to have a running head. And by the way, the words running head should be there on the first page, but shouldn't appear on subsequent pages. You also use Times New Roman 12-point font. Table of contents. Please make sure that the numbers are aligned. They should not zigzag. And make sure that the most prominent parts are aligned left, everything else is indented inwards. So those are not important in this case. So general page format, you have to double space for APA. However, you're not going to double space your report, but just make sure you use 1-inch margins and Times New Roman 12-point font. This also depends on the way you'd like to style your entire document and if you have how you're going to design it and what are the graphs that you're going to do. It all depends on you. You have to make it as visually appealing as possible. Remember, we talked about this part, the 5-level heading. This would be an example. Title, bold, 24 point and centered. This is the 1st level heading, 2nd level heading, 3rd level heading, 4th level heading. Make sure the graphics tell a simple story, reinforce and not replace text, is ethical, so it presents information that is accurate and true, and is labeled and placed properly. For example, in IEEE, if you have a graph and it's so you have to have it should be centered. They can span across 2 columns. However, if it takes more than 2 columns or if it's big, you have to place it either at the top or at the bottom of the page. You have to use Arabic numericals and you use captions of 8-point font. For APA, you have to have a very clear and concise title. And of course, you have to use Arabic numericals. Now, when it comes to references, both APA and IEEE use the following: author's names, date of publication, title, and location where it's found. APA general rules, you have to double space and do a hang indentation, Times New Roman, 12-point font, use alphabetical order, use the title of the major work is not capitalized. Only the first word of the title and subtitle are capitalized. I'm going to show you some examples. IEEE follow almost the same thing, however, only double space in between, single space entries, and you have to have them numbered, and the numbers are in brackets. These are, if you're coding one author, 2 to 7 authors, more than 7 authors, etc. This information is present in the book and in your Wadsworth handbook. IEEE as well. Let me give you an example. So how do we cite this APA? This is a cover page of a book, and this is the copyright page, which is exactly behind the cover page. Author's name, title, publisher, author's name, place of publication, publisher, and date of publication. How do we use this information? For APA, last name, comma, first initial, full stop, year of publication, between parentheses, point, title of a book or of a movie is in italics, title of an article is not in italics and not in quotation marks like with MLA, point, state, which is the place of publication or the city of publication, and then state, and then a colon, and then you have the publisher. With IEEE, you have the number in brackets, first initial, point, last name, comma, title in italics, point, city and state, publisher, year, and page range from page 6, for example, to page 46, for example. APA article in a periodical, this is how you do it. Different types of publications. As I said, this information is present both in the book and in your Wadsworth handbook, and I will be very particular while grading this stuff. It has to be very accurate. So if you're in doubt, please come back and ask me questions, refer to me for more information. This is for IEEE. This is an example of a journal entry and how you quote it, how you reference it. This is for IEEE. For electronic sources, IEEE electronic sources. This is an electronic source. And how do you code it? APA. IEEE.